We've seen a few settlements during our time in the Commonwealth. Some have been large, some small, some prosperous, and some poor. The one thing they all have in common is that they all need our fucking help. Today, however, we are looking at another settlement that actually could have used our help, but by the time we got there, well, it's all over. Today, we look at University Point. Ignore the pharmacy. That is for another video. A welcome sign gives you an impression of the kind of place this settlement is, with what looks like was once a Brahmin pen beside it. Next to that is a generator. Off the bat, this looks like a very progressive and thriving settlement. I am sure this is still the case at... Oh no shit. No, never mind, everybody dead. Just as the sign welcomed us, so too did the skeletal remains of what we can assume are the former members of this settlement. From the looks of it, they have been dead a while, and the time frame of several corpses comes up multiple times in this video. Stepping out into the main courtyard area, it's not looking any better. When you arrive, synths will be loitering around the place, like they are wont to do. This gives you a pretty good idea of the chances of anyone still being alive. Fucking nil. The first house we shall look at is this one. It appears to have been a store that sold armour, and it was not too badly stocked. The next floor up has a cradle in it. Okay, all this was in use after the war, so we can assume that a baby was here at some point, and its parents, or parent, were set up in the other room. Don't really want to think about where the baby is right now, to be honest. Bit morbid. It's okay though, as we find a more appropriate thing to discuss out on this walkway. This dead person. Now I know they look military, but this structure and settlement are very post-war, so they were just dressed this way. Seems like they died while on lookout, likely in the initial synth attack. The house next to the armor one seems to be a weapons vendor of sorts, or at least it was. Unfortunately, it's cleared out by the time we get here. Inside, we can find a table that looks like it was knocked over for cover, and the individual that was likely responsible. The synths must have killed them, along with the person that these random bones once belonged to, which is kinda weird because you wouldn't really figure a synth would just destroy a corpse and scatter the bones everywhere. It's more a human thing to do. On the next floor, we find the rest of them, lying on a desk in the room, so they were moved somehow, once again, probably by the shitlord synths. Also found here is a woman. Now she appears to have been killed, likely shot, where she lay, and from the gun, she made an attempt to defend herself. Bit of a failed attempt though. She may have been the wife of the dead man downstairs. This building links on to another one next door. This one is pretty empty, save for the ground floor. Here, we can find a holotape entitled Sylvia's Holotape, inside a red toolbox. Let's have a wee listen.
Sylvia, I don't care what Bert says. People have a right to know what kind of danger they're in. Look, the youngsters may think the Institute is just a ghost story, but I know you're old enough to remember the attacks. I know you feel for the girl, but she brought the trouble down on us. She and her father need to answer for it. If we give the Institute what they want, or just give them the girl even, maybe they'll leave us alone.
So here, we are introduced to our first arsehole, Perry. He seems to be trying to persuade Sylvia to give up a girl, or side with him on handing her over. She seems to have done something to anger the Institute. We don't know what it is yet, but... well, based on the death and corpses, I think she might have done something. The holotape also alludes to a period of time, when the Institute seemed to have been relatively quiet, if most children didn't think they were real. Going into the huts in the centre of town, which were either makeshift homes or shop fronts, we find a lot more dead people. Interestingly, they are dead near their beds, or on them. This could suggest that this attack took place at night, in order to catch people off guard. This could also explain why the woman was near her bed when she died, as she was sleeping when the attack started. It could also have been early morning. Next, on to the heart of all evil, the Student Credit Union, where dreams go to die. Behind one of the counters is another body, possibly someone hiding from the synths, or working, as they attacked. As we know, this building was in use, so it's unlikely that they were an immediate post-war death. The same can be said of these corpses as well. A couple died holding hands, and the two in front of them while they were playing chess. However, It's entirely possible that this simply happened during the attack, and that they weren't quick enough to respond, which does seem to be the case for many of the bodies we have seen. Up to the top floor, if we head out onto the makeshift wooden balcony area, we can find another body here, sprawled, quite comically, over one end of it. I think this is the mayor, and we shall get to why later. Behind that body, another person who managed to put up a fight is found. It appears they at least managed to get their gun out before they were slain by the synths. Back out in the main room, we can find the mayor's terminal. His name was Mayor Bert Strickland, and the first set of entries are the council logs. Forgive me, as the order is newest entry at the top, oldest at the bottom, for some reason. This is the same for several terminals in this area, and I have no idea why, bar maybe because it's a mail system. The most recent entry was the 12th of August, 2285. It was a special session, and is in regards to a visitor from the Institute, so it's related to the tape we heard. A girl called Jacqueline Spencer supposedly found pre-war tech, and they want to discuss what to do about it. Oil Gladys is reasonable, asking why they should believe them, which is an excellent point. Pete Owens, brother of Perry, is an arsehole, and says give her up. Her father, Gerald, responds with a beating. Top lad Gerald. The meeting was then ended. The next entry is 11 days before, on the 1st of August. Pretty tame stuff at the start, just some export tax. However, the part about the vault here, not that kind, unfortunately, is interesting. They punished the child and changed the password. Not a bad weed password either. The last entry is exactly 1 month previously, meaning they likely met at the 1st of every month. All it says is a new generator, and then the rest of it is corrupted. Then it's on to the university meal relay, which they all seem to have appropriated. The first is from Martin Lawson, and it appears that no one else knew about the latest town meeting. As a result, the rumour mill went off on one, and people are overreacting. He thinks his kids are being given up and that there's a nuke. Also that the Institute would give a flying fuck about their crops, which I find pretty funny. The next one is from Cody Cole, apologising for his wife, as she and the arsehole Perry are hard at work spreading rumours. Next up is Martha's actual entry. She seems quite distraught, and to be fair, it's mostly over her children. I do agree with her. It was always going to get out, and telling people would have been the calmer, safer option. Instead, they let rumours get out, and now everyone's running about like a headless chicken. Next is from Gerald, and understandably, he's concerned about his daughter. Apparently she's quite capable, and was responsible for setting up the whole meal relay. Gerald is convinced it's a con, or at least wants more evidence before they do anything to his daughter. We also see another example of how Perry is an arsehole. The next entry is even more evidence. It's made even worse because they want the data, not her. He just wants to give her to them, just in case. Spineless fuck. Lastly, we get a holotape from this terminal, entitled University Point Council Meeting.
As head of the town council, I call this meeting to order. In attendance this evening we have Perry Owens, Gerald Spencer, Sylvia Cooper, and myself, Bert Strickland, as acting council head.
Bert, what is all this about? I've got wheat that needs bringing in.
Yesterday, I received a very disturbing visitor. I managed to record part of the conversation. It's probably best if you all hear it. I don't see anything about that in my records. What was it you said you wanted again?
Don't toy with me. We know a girl here found some pre-war data related to energy research, and you're gonna give it to us.
I really have no idea what data you think we have. We're just farmers and fishers. I'd be happy to ask around for you. Please, just lower the gun.
Look, I'm a reasonable man, but the Institute wants that data. You got 2 days to get it for me, and then we do this the hard way. Oh God, Jacqueline.
What has your daughter done, Gerald?
She's been saying that she was close to finding something in those old terminals she fixes up. But I don't think she actually found anything. Bullshit. Now, I overheard her talking to that trader last week. Something about getting 10 times the price for something if she sold it in Diamond City. Look, just let me talk to her. See if she actually has this data or not.
Pete, sit down. We all need to remain calm. about this. I need you all to keep this to yourselves for now. The last thing we need is to start a panic.
So first of all, how quickly people are to turn on others. Shits. Second, it seems the male voice, who is very likely to be Kellogg, is looking for some pre-war energy research data. Data that Jacqueline seems to have stumbled across. He threatened the mayor, and by extension, the whole settlement. As we can see, they followed through on that threat. It seems likely the Institute found out from the traitor that Jacqueline stumbled across, who might actually work for the Institute. The platform near the terminal was probably where the mayor could look out at the settlement from, and as a result, the corpse there is likely his. Down a hole, located in what I assume was the mayor's office, we find this chap straddling a fire extinguisher. Yeah. Now, given that this room is tucked away and closed off, and that nothing else is here, I think it's likely that this is a corpse created by the bombs, as I'm not sure why they would do this if the Sims showed up, or why they just didn't jump out the wall and run to the hills. Next, we should be going into Segwick Hall, the last building in this settlement. It has a moderately sized area around the back, with some mirelurks and a door, but we shall enter through the front. So as you can see by the large hardware sign, this building too has been repurposed, in this case for technological needs. We can find a dead woman here, and it's likely that she was killed in the synth attack, as this part of the building wasn't used at the time, though that isn't the case for other parts. We shall first go into this room to the right of the front door, that has a terminal that is of interest to us. This terminal contains a student records, and a student called Curtis Marsh was signed in. Now most of the entries, as you can see, are corrupted. In fact, all of the undergraduate records are corrupted, which is okay, as they play no part in this story. The graduates are another story entirely. G to M works, and as you can see, Curtis can be found here. Another student is here as well, Leslie, and it's here that we get a code, their date of birth, in fact. They also had some of the highest GPA in the school at the time. The next entry contains no one of note, and the following one is corrupted. The student directory archives cannot be accessed. Turning right as we come out of that room, and heading through the next doorway, we come to a corridor, at the end of which is an office. Inside this office is a skeleton. Now this one I believe died just after the bombs hit, and I believe it may have been the Dean's body, as the terminal, which we shall look at now, was also his. He was Dean Alan Patterson, and we can access his meal relay, a relay that, like the mayor's, may be set from newest to oldest. The first entry is from Henry Mitchell, and it's about one Professor Campbell. It appears the Dean instructed Henry to watch him, and that he has been going into the credit union with another student, Leslie Matthews, the one that we got the birthday of. And this Professor Campbell also wants to get the birthday of, as we'll see later. It appears Henry is also on academic probation, though we don't know for what. The next one is from Darius Parker. It appears she was trying to reach a Colonel Rosemont on the Dean's behalf. The Dean also wants some info, and appears he does not have clearance for it. So the military seems to be being shitty about it. The entry after that one is from Campbell himself. It appears some research is being done at the university, but the military won't tell the Dean what the research is on. Only Campbell seems to know, and the professor is being a massive dickhead about it. The second last entry is from Teresa Robinson. There's construction going on under the credit union building, and once again, no one is being told why. Legal shenanigans seem to be afoot. I would also hazard a guess, this entry is where all the inquiries by the Dean started, and I wish we had some real dates to work with so we could give a timeline of this. Unfortunately, it seems all the mail came through to this terminal all at once. The last one seems to have been at the start of the contract with the military. The professor has politely told the Dean to fuck off, and that he can have whatever contracts he wants, as it appears he never told the Dean he was accepting the contract. What an asshole. So a contract with the military was undertaken, and the Dean was opposed to it. The grounds for the opposition seem to have been A. They were doing a lot of construction, B. He wasn't told what it was on, and C. The professor was a cunt. All sound like reasonable complaints to me. Outside that office, we come to a flooded and collapsed area that is also teeming with mirelurks. Most of the bodies here are from the bombs hitting, or shortly after. As we learn later, this area was scavenged and was normally locked up. This room seems to have been a lecture hall of sorts, although it's very small for a university. A few mirelurks and eggs will be here, so watch yourself. If we take the collapsed floor up, we can get to the next floor, and immediately find a dead, yet very peaceful looking corpse. Looks like they just fell over and refused to get back up again. We can find a dead woman by the bookcase in this room, a room I am assuming was a library of sorts. And watch out, a shitty synth could be found hiding behind the desk, like an absolute creep. One of the rooms just off from this one has another dead body as well. They look like they were in a great deal more pain than the chap in the hall. Also, I am confused why this room had an exit sign over it, as it doesn't really lead anywhere. Now, taking the stairs in the library up, we come to the top floor, and it's a fucking mess. Does not look structurally sound, many holes, danger. If we go straight ahead and skirt the edges of what used to be the floor, we can find another corpse here, and from the looks of the room and their position, they could have been a lecturer. In fact, from one of the terminals we find near here, this may have been Professor Campbell, and, if you ask me, he got exactly what he deserved. The door near him is the one that leads to the back of the building, but there is nothing of interest out there. Going right from where we entered this floor, we pass a few more holes in the ground, and on the left is a wall that separated this place and kept it locked up. A few more bodies can be found here, likely more students or faculty members. Poor sods. The office on the left here contains the body of a woman, and I do think this one was from the synth attack, and we'll get to why soon, but first, the terminal. So this was the professor's terminal, and his first name was Stuart. The mail relay is first, and once again, the first entry is the most recent. The first is from the 22nd, and it's great as we have dates now. Curtis talks about Leslie's birthday again, hinting at the significance of it. Also, Curtis the dog, he's going out with Leslie. Still, even if it's new, fuck's sake man, how can you not know her birthday? He then says he will see Stuart on Saturday, so perhaps they were working when the bombs hit. The next entry is the Dean being dramatic. It was the day before Curtis's entry, and also seems to confirm that his terminal entries were newest to oldest. He threatens to out Stuart if he doesn't tell him what it's all about, and it all comes back to the student credit union. Also, just for the record, he noticed fuck all. Henry was the one who saw them. Entry 3 is from the day before, and they need more time. Apparently Stuart is always present when they work, and they feel they could be more productive if this was not the case. Apparently something happened that may have caused this, but it was not their fault. They also know the Dean is following them. Creep. Also, for fuck's sake, that is not how you spell professor. The next entry shows the Dean went to the Colonel, and was thrown out of the base. It also appears Stuart may have been in the military at one point, or was at least affiliated with them. It's also likely that this happened after Doris failed to get the Colonel on the phone. The second last entry is from the 29th of September, and it seems Stuart called the Dean by his first name. The construction has begun and the Dean wants to know what the research is, and why the need for construction. To which Stuart told him he doesn't have clearance. This email was sent just after the Dean was told about the construction taking place. The last one is from the 15th, and it's the Dean putting down the boot. He wants to know what Stuart is up to and what the military contract is. This seems to have been the beginning of the disagreements between the two men. The next section is on the research notes, and it seems Stuart is just fucking with the Dean now. He seems to have made this file just to leave a message to annoy him. Stuart is being a cheeky cunt at this point, and more, I am hoping he did die. The lecture notes are next. The ones from the 11th to the 15th are corrupted. However, the ones from the 18th to 22nd still work. It seems pretty standard. The graduate class one, however, piques my interest. I'm not 100% sure, but a lot of what he's talking about seems similar to what could be applied to the energy research, which is likely why he's discussing it. Also, fuck's sake, Curtis. So Stuart was conducting his research for the military, and he took the grant and contract without notifying the Dean, who is downright stalking him to find out what it's about. It has something to do with the credit union, but we shall find out what soon. For now, the body. It's very likely Jacqueline's. Her bag can be found in the desk here, and inside it a note. The Institute attacked, and it was the data they wanted. She was telling the truth. She only just found the data when they got here. But clearly, at that point, they just didn't care. Outside that room, we can find an elevator shaft. A corpse can be found on its roof. And given that this area was locked up and the corpse's location, it seems likely this was a death just after the bombs hit. Maybe they crawled up there, or fell down. Just past that elevator is another room, and this one has a body in it. Now this section of the building was accessible, and the drink is still lying here. This could have been someone killed when the synth attacked, but if it was, that was not the right time to drink. On the opposite side of that floor, we can find a room that I assume was Jacqueline's, given the hardware lying around and the teddy bear. Perhaps all these computers were from when she was trying to find that data. An issue of Tesla can be found on her desk, and on the board beside that is a number sequence called Coulomb's constant, which is an electric force constant. Look it up if you wish to know more. Down the stairs near her room is another bedroom that I assume belonged to her father Gerald, who we will soon find. Outside that room is a workshop of sorts entitled Tools, and it seems most of Jacqueline's and Gerald's work was done here. In the corner, by many chairs, we find another body. I believe this was a synth death, as, well, why would you leave this in your workplace? Maybe I'm just strange like that. Anyway, the synths were here and fucked it up. So near the only terminal here is a body, and the terminal is Gerald's. So it's probably his body? Also, we can find the key to the locked doors of the barricades here, if you need them. So on the terminal first are the user logs. I will read them chronologically this time. The first is Josephine. That was his wife's name, and she has been dead for a while now. This seems to be his journal of sorts. He is telling her that their daughter looks like her, and that she is taking things apart even though she is young. So she seems quite brilliant. Next is she actually did it. She changed her name to Jack. I think that's how it's pronounced anyway. So the flooded area seems to have been locked up for a while, and Jack wanted in to salvage some stuff. She managed to set up the relay as a result. Lastly is I don't know what to do, and it's all hit the fan. So Jacqueline did find some of the data, though from her note it clearly wasn't all of it until the very end. People are doing what people do best, panic, and accused her of being a synth, which, I mean, in the circumstances I can completely understand, but still, not cool. After that is the meal relay for his terminal. The first, or last, depending on how these ones were ordered, is from Sylvia Cooper, and she clearly ignored the holotape from that arsehole. She recommends that they get out while they can. Not from the settlement, the Commonwealth. I find this odd as, well, I just didn't expect that to be a viable solution, I suppose. She fears the neighbours will turn on them. Martha is being a bit of a bitch again. I feel like she has never complained about pre-war tech before, as long as it benefited her. So she's full of shit in my opinion. She is panicking and then pulls the "your wife would hate you" card. Then she says she will kill him if her kids are harmed. I hope they were, Martha. I hope your kids were harmed. Finally, it's one from the mayor. He says that Gerald needs to keep her inside, as people are going a little crazy and blaming Jacqueline. Which, in a way, it is her fault. He wants her to turn over the data, but she didn't have it all anyway. If we keep going straight after we emerge from the tools room, we come to the elevator and Jacqueline's terminal. As you can see, she customized it quite a bit. The first set of entries are out of her journal, and they read in the proper direction. The first is about her mother's birthday, and it sounds like it was a while ago. Gerald was crying quite a bit after she put her foot in her mouth and said she forgot what her mum looks like. Per form, Jacqueline. She also wants to look for another hard drive and a port for Sylvia. The next entry is set shortly after, and Gerald is a little better. She also found a hard drive in one of the halls, and clearly it was the first time she was exposed to the data. We shall look at the hall in question soon. The third entry is in the data she could salvage, and it was indeed on the energy project. Part of it was corrupted, but she managed to find a possible buyer, or someone who could find a buyer anyway. This is presumably the reason that the info got out to the Institute, either directly from the caravan worker, or by word of mouth. The second last entry is about how everything starts going wrong. The Mirelurks are laying their eggs again, and Gerald locked up the flooded area. This must have happened after the emergency meeting. I find it odd he didn't listen about the data, as if he had, she may have been able to salvage all of it, and the Institute may not have killed everyone. The last entry is when they all start going mental at her, from vile threats to accusing her of being a synth. This entry was likely just before the attack happened, as she went to find the rest of the data after. If that was her in Stuart's office, then she must have realised that whatever it was in the student credit union. The last thing is the mail relay. She deleted some of the actual mail, but you can still see some of the titles, and some are pretty bad. Two of the messages are still here, however. The first is from either Pete or Perry. Essentially, they just lay into her, telling her the Institute will kill them all, so being really calm. He then calls her a bitch and claims she works for the Institute, which is clearly a claim brought on by fear. But still, what a pisspot. The last one is from her father, telling her no more scavenging. He still thinks it's a con man, and in that regard, he was dead wrong. He still believes he can calm things down, though that clearly didn't work. Now, for her holotape.
Okay. First, to say I'm sorry, Dad. I knew I was onto something big, and thought I'd see what a trader would pay if I found it. I had no idea that the Institute would be after any of this, and now the whole town is in trouble. I know you told me not to worry, but I just know that the town is going to vote to throw us out, or worse. I wasn't lying when I said I didn't have the data, despite what Mr. Owens and his cronies think. That's why I have to go back in. I know the key is in there, I just need to put the pieces together. It's something with that professor. If I can find it, maybe I can give the Institute what they want, and they'll just leave us alone.
Once again, the Owens are a bunch of assholes. So she was very close, and while she never got to the credit union, she knew it was there. Not sure what she thought was worse than being kicked out. Despite everything, I don't think they actually would have killed them. Now, on to the final lecture hall. These corpses are all just after the bombs, though the ladder and fixed light look like they were more recent additions, although the fellow beside it looks like they've been there a while. So this hall is pretty flooded, and as you can see, was actually in use when the bombs hit. Oddly enough, several of them seem to be drinking. If this was the day of the bombs, then it was still early morning. Some crack these lectures must have been. The hard drive is likely to have come from one of these terminals here, as she mentions it was a large one, and these are the more advanced computers. I'm not sure why any of the data was here if it was so classified, though it could have just been references to it. Now, for the credit union. First, we shall enter through the front door of it. So inside is a woman and a suitcase. Now this seems like a death due to the bombs, or a synth-related one. While it is true that people could get in here, it seems odd to just run in here with a suitcase during the attack. On the other hand, I cannot remember if I killed this synth, and she does have a pistol lying beside her. She could have killed it and died shortly after, for all we know. The other side can be accessed from inside the Union building. This was where all the loans and money came into, where dreams went to die. Ah, university. Now this body at the bottom of the stairs, I'm saying synth attack. We know people get in here and it was a vault, so someone may have thought it was secure. They ran in here and were killed. There was no way they would have just left a body here like this if they were still using this area. The password for the vault door was the one we got from the mayor's terminal. The safes in here will give you some pretty good stuff, but it's Campbell's one that we are interested in. The code is Leslie's birthday, which explains why they wanted it so much. And that opens up the wall, letting us finally see what they were doing. From the equipment we can see, this place was pretty advanced, and from the sleeping bags and food, people were staying here, likely Curtis and Leslie, who we know intended to be here the day the bombs dropped. A passage can be found here, but it's collapsed, so we don't know what it may have led to. We can find out more from the research terminal. The only thing here are the research logs. The first entry is some of their problems. As Curtis said, progress is slow as the Dean is being a creep. They are apparently having containment issues with the beam, and what is actually happening doesn't match up with their calculations. Entry 2 is about improvements of progress, and apparently Leslie lied about her job to explain her work. Also, some buy is undercover. Now, for science. Scattering patterns seem to be in reference to the scattering of the photons in the beam they're working on, probably a weapon. Cathode luminescence is when electrons or photons collide with a material that emits light via a process where heat is not the cause, like phosphorus. The grouping suggests that there is less scattering. It's at that point that it moves away from energy technology and becomes more about improving the efficiency of weaponry. Also, she was pissed. Just like I said. For fuck's sake, Curtis. The third entry is when the bombs hit. They were here when it happened, and the lab was hit with an EMP from the nuke. The entry's 3 days after, and clearly Campbell did survive the initial blast, as he told them he'd meet up with them, or at least that's what I think they're saying. Could be that was Campbell's body, and he went back for something. So it's been a while, and they only now chose to continue the research. The hell were they doing for the rest of the time? So the tunnel led to the parking garage, which is wrecked outside, so there must have been another entrance. At this point, they are just focusing the beam more and more until it does what they want, and they have enough food to last them ages. Though where they kept it all, I have no idea. The final entry shows they did finish the research, and that they made 2 prototypes. However, they ran out of food and decided to leave. Something tells me Campbell will never know they finished it. Also, they got married. Good lad, Curtis. The actual weapon can be found just beside the terminal. It's called the Prototype UP77 Limitless Potential, and it never has to be reloaded. Not sure what that had to do with the research exactly, as it sounded like they were either making it stronger or take less ammo. I mean, it needs to be reloaded due to the limit of the shots that the cells carry, not because of the gun. I don't think this fictional weapon, in this fictional game, makes a lot of sense. So this was University Point, and fuck if there wasn't a lot to talk about. A group of settlers lived here, presumably in some semblance of peace. However, one resident, Jacqueline Spencer, was quite gifted with machines. During her scavenging, she came across some old research data, partly corrupted. She tried to find a buyer with a caravan, and eventually the news made its way back to Kellogg. He threatened the mayor, and in turn drove everyone crazy. The two Owens brothers and Martha were responsible for a lot of it. They whipped everyone into a frenzy, and then began accusing Jacqueline, saying that they should give her to the Institute, and even calling her a synth. Her father, Gerald, was convinced it was a scam, and stopped her scavenging, hoping it would all blow over. This delayed her from finding out where the data was. The Institute then attacked, killing everyone in University Point that we know about, all over some energy research. The research was part of a military contract with the university, overseen by Stuart Campbell, and took place in the facility under the Student Credit Union. The two people on the project were Curtis March and Leslie Matthews. The Dean Alan Patterson didn't know why they were building anything or what the research was, due to the classified nature of it. He and Stuart got into it, each essentially telling the other to get fucked, the Dean even going as far as following Stuart. Eventually, however, the bombs hit, and Leslie and Curtis were still in the vault. They stayed there for many weeks, finishing their work, and left after their food was running low and Curtis proposed. All in all, it told us a sweet story from the past and a tragic story of the present, both involving gifted people, both involving assholes, in the form of Stuart and the Owens brothers. Well, at least we know they all died. An institution of education, and the story of the people who lived there, before and after the war. I hope you liked this look at all of it. If you did like it, give the video a like, and if you want regular updates, subscribe. Any suggestions for lore or future videos should be left in the comments below. Better yet, go on to my subreddit so we can discuss them in more detail. It's linked in the description. If you wish to, you can support me on Patreon. £1 or $1, I ask for no more. Any rewards you would like to see that I don't have, message me and I will take a look. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook to get regular updates or have a wee chat. Any business you wish to discuss, email me at thenthapple.business@gmail.com and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope to see you in the next one. And until then, goodbye.